Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my channel. I really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. I'm looking into this awful tragedy in Charlotte. This young woman from Ukraine just riding home from work on the train, on public transportation when she's brutally stabbed. I've been going over the video. I've been looking into the suspect's criminal history and mental health history. A lot of people enraged that this guy was out. I'm digging into all of it, including the new federal charges in this episode of Brian Entin Investigates. Hey guys, I'm actually in Albuquerque, New Mexico right now, working on a story for News Nation. I've been sort of all over this week, but I've also been closely following just this terrible tragedy out of Charlotte, North Carolina. The minute I saw the video, I just started looking into it. This young woman from the Ukraine who was brutally stabbed and killed on light rail transit in Charlotte. Her name is, it's Iryna Zarutska. She had recently come to the US from Ukraine to escape the war with Russia. That's what her family says. Zarutska started working immediately after she got her work permit. Sounds just like a wonderful young woman, helping at a senior citizen center and a pizza place, taking care of neighborhood animals. She was coming home from work on a light rail train when she was brutally murdered, and now there are federal charges. That's new, just with today. The U.S. Attorney in Charlotte held a news conference to announce that not only are there state murder charges against the man who did this, but there are also federal charges now. The whole thing was caught on video. The charge now is Title 18, Section 1992A7. It's a law Congress passed called the Act of Violence on a Mass Transportation System. And the way the U.S. Attorney described it is because acts like this affect the American way, a random act like this in a mass transportation system, ways that we get to work and school, that this crime makes people scared to get on the light rail, that is the reason that this is now considered a federal crime also, in addition to the state murder charges. And this federal crime does potentially carry the punishment of the death penalty. So it's quite significant. It's happened 9:55, August 22nd. There was first a stabbing call that there was a stabbing on a light rail train. The wounds were actually on the neck and hand of this young woman, and they found a pocket knife on the scene. There's surveillance video that shows her getting on the train by herself. She's still in her work uniform. Just happened to be sitting down in front of the suspect. His name is Decarlos Brown Jr. And you see him open the pocket knife, stabs her 3 times in the neck, and then walks off the train with blood dripping off the knife. Again, this young woman, Iryna, just sounds like an incredible woman, graduated with a degree in art and restoration. She was living in a bomb shelter in Ukraine, wanted a better life, and moved to the United States and ended up in Charlotte. And now this awful tragedy happened. The embassy in Ukraine reportedly called to get her body, but her family has said that she loved America so much that that they've decided to have her buried here in the United States. So this is the part that's really enraging, is when you look back at the suspect's criminal history. And again, his name is Decarlos Brown Jr. He's been arrested 14 times. And there's obviously questions now about how a repeat offender with documented mental health issues was able to remain free and allegedly go on to commit this murder. Brown has a criminal history spanning over a decade, including felony, breaking and entering. There was robbery with a dangerous weapon, all sorts of prison sentences. He served a 5-year prison sentence for that. Then in April 2014, Brown pleaded guilty to 2 2013 charges of felony larceny. A judge suspended his sentence of 5 years to just 15 months in prison. It was his sentence of 5 to 15 months in prison. Instead, he was ordered to serve 2 years probation, so avoided prison there. 4 months into his probation, robbed a man, they say. Brown robbed a man in an apartment complex in South Carolina. Apparently was, surveying the complex for an hour before approaching the man. He had a handgun, demanded the victim's phone and money. I mean, that's who this guy is. Pleaded guilty to robbery with a dangerous weapon. February 2015, he was sentenced to a minimum of 6 years and 1 month and a maximum of 8 years and 4 months in prison, and he served 5 years and 7 months before being released that time. Spent a year on parole. So many mugshots with this guy. A year later, in September 2022, he was again arrested on charges of assault on a female and injury to property. A year and a half later, April 2024, arrested for misusing 911, posted a $500 secured bond, was charged with the same offense 2 weeks later, and again in January and in May. The Magistrate Judge Teresa Stokes, released Brown on January 19th, the same day he was arrested, on a written promise to appear, which I'm going to explain in a second. A written promise to appear, essentially saying that if he signs this form, he just has to promise to come back to court, which is kind of strange when you think about his long criminal history, that they were trusting him to come back, but that's what they did. He was supposed to present himself to Alliance Health, which is contracted with the jail to be evaluated within 7 days of another order that came up involving his mental health. And if that order was followed, he would have been evaluated just weeks before this brutal stabbing. So the bottom line is, like so many of the cases that I cover, there were a bunch of warning signs, mental health warning signs. He's reportedly schizophrenic, and then all of these criminal charges over the years. If you go back and look at one of my YouTube videos from a couple weeks ago, I did a whole story on the bail issue in America and how all of these people get out on bail. And this seems to fit right into that category. There was a statement now released by the victim's family. And I want to read you this. This just came out. It says, the family of 23-year-old Iryna Zarutska, a Ukrainian refugee who fled war for safety and opportunity in the United States, is now speaking out about her tragic and preventable death on the evening of August 22nd. Iryna was killed in a violent attack while riding the Charlotte Area Transportation System Blue Line light rail just minutes from her home. Iryna had built a new life in Charlotte, working full-time at a local pizzeria while attending community college to improve her English. She was a kind and hard-working young woman, deeply loved by her family and friends. That night, she texted her boyfriend that she would be home soon. Tragically, her journey ended in violence near the Camden Light Rail Station. Her loved ones became alarmed when she did not arrive to her apartment at the anticipated time, and her phone's location alerted them that she was still at the station. Upon arriving at the station, they were devastated to learn that Iryna had died at the scene. Her death was since drawn national attention following the release of disturbing surveillance footage. The family is urging the public and media to respect her dignity and their grief by not reposting or circulating the footage of her killing. And that's why I did not want to post that part of the footage, because it is just awful. It's awful. They said, we're heartbroken beyond words. Iryna came here to find peace and safety, and instead her life was stolen from her in the most horrific way. No family should have to go through this. And now they say that they are seeking accountability and systemic change. The family's immediate priority is to ensure the man responsible for Iryna's murder is brought to justice and remains behind bars. However, they are also calling attention to broader crises in public safety and systemic failures. And this is what they say: a lack of visible or effective security presence on the CATS Blue Line, failure of oversight in the contract between CATS and professional security services, absence of adequate safety measures that could have prevented this tragedy. They say the family is demanding now a full investigation into the circumstances leading up to her death, including lapses in security protocols and failures within the public transportation system. They say this could have been anyone riding the light rail that night, and they've now got this call of action. And I think that's one of the reasons that so many people are alarmed by this, and why I wanted to do a video on this, is because when you watch it, you realize that this really could have been any of us that use public transportation, whether it be trains, buses. She just sat down on the train and she was just going home. And I know I've seen it. I'm on a subway, I'm on a bus, I'm in the airport. You see people who are mentally ill, who seem dangerous. I think we can all, and I'm gonna get into this in this interview coming up with Bobby Chacon, FBI agent, but I say that coming from a place of, like, I have people in my family, my grandma was schizophrenic, so I don't say any of this trying to disparage people who are mentally ill or trying to say that they should be, thrown in asylums or whatever. But at the same time, when they're dangerous and when they're criminals and they commit crimes over and over again, I think it's scary for people. And you see what happened to this innocent woman on the train. So, yeah, That's the latest statement from her family.
I'm joined now by Bobby Chacon, former FBI agent. Bobby, I was just watching the video of this attack on the light rail, and I'm not showing the full video. I'm pausing it. Obviously, it's too much. But when you see it, I mean, it's so brutal and hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean it's so unprovoked and so sudden. You have somebody sitting there, living their life, like sitting there looking at their phone without a care in the world, apparently, like and to know that death is looming over her shoulder, it's just shocking for everybody to watch. We're seeing something she never did, right? And it's just so upsetting to see that happen in real time.
And she almost seems like alert at first, and almost like she's crying.
Yeah, an injury like that, to a major blood vessel in the neck, and I don't know what it is. It could have been the jugular vein. It could have been another major artery. But it's so you're basically dead the moment the wound happens. But it takes a few seconds for you to realize it. And you can see she's sitting there as if almost nothing happened. She's looking around. She's like, she probably feels the wound, but she doesn't know what to do. Now, this guy is still looming over her. He's standing right there. But within seconds, less than a minute, she, devolves, and all of a sudden she leans over to her right and then right onto the floor, in a pool of blood, and the blood is just, pouring out over the side there, and you see it. Yeah, it was a fatal blow, and probably nothing was going to save her, even if the people were right there to provide aid.
What do you make of this federal charge now? The feds have come out today and said, in addition to the state murder charges, they're also going to charge him with an act of violence on a mass transportation system. Did you expect that?
In this environment, I didn't expect it, but I'm not surprised. I think this is one of the things that, our public officials can do to make the public feel safer, like at least somebody's doing something, right? Because all of the focus now is on how is this guy still on the street after his very long criminal history, his repeated crimes that he doesn't seem to be able to be rehabilitated from long stints in prison. He did 5 years in jail from, I think, 2015 to 2020. He's out a few months and he's arrested for assaulting his own sister. So, there's no rehabilitating a guy like this. And so the public really feels unsafe knowing that these people keep getting let out. We've had a no bail or a bail reform movement, which means, these bad people are being allowed out back on the street among us, and these things are happening. And so, the Fed stepping in this particular case, it's like, maybe it's a way to kind of make at least the public say, hey, at least somebody's listening to us. Somebody's, stepping up the efforts to keep us safe.
Why was he out? I mean, it's so frustrating when you read about all of the charges and you see all the mugshots. I mean, the mugshots tell the story. There's so many. How does a guy like that end up just free?
Well, to be fair, his most recent arrest was for, I think technically it was like a false call to 911. So it wasn't all that serious a crime. And his last crime was, a while ago. So this magistrate has to kind of judge him on, what the crime committed was. It wasn't an act of violence. It was simply making a false call to 911. However, her better course of action, since he's been previously diagnosed as a schizophrenic with acts of violence in his history, she should have put him under some kind of examination, competency of examination pending release. She should not have just released him out on the street as she did by allowing him to sign a piece of paper saying, I'll come back. It's like we used to call it ROR, release on your own recognizance. Basically, it's no bail. You just promise to come back. And that was a huge mistake because I think you can extrapolate his criminal history of violence, even though a lot of it took place a while ago, in his unstable mental health situation, and order that exam before he was released. But she chose just to release him back on the street.
I think one of the reasons this story is resonating with so many people is because, like, people, first of all, use public transportation in a lot of big cities, and there's a lot of people on the trains. I see them that um, are mentally ill. I mean, it's just obvious. And I'm sympathetic towards mentally ill. I mean, I have family members that have, that are schizophrenic. So I don't mean any disrespect in that way. I mean, it's real, mental illness is real, but at the same time, if they're dangerous, like it almost seems like it's just become acceptable for them to just be on the train, in the airport, in the park, and it's scary, I think, for a lot of people.
It is, and it's only getting worse with the explosion of homelessness, and most a lot of which is the result of drug addiction and mental illness. I grew up in the 1970s, and we had institutions, and they were terrible, granted, where we would warehouse mentally ill people, and they were abused, and it was really terrible places. But what we did was we flipped the switch the exact other direction, and we let everybody out on the street, and now we don't provide any care for people that need it. And so there needs to be a movement back towards having either state-run institutions. They were similar to prisons. I mean, if you saw the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, things like that, where these people are basically inmates in a mental institution. There was a big proliferation of those prior to the late 1970s, early 1980s, and they shut a lot of them down. First of all, they were very expensive for states to run, and people weren't getting the care they needed. They were really horrific places. But we need to move back to a system that warehouses violent people, before they commit these crimes, because people are like, people that are schizophrenic, as I do. They're very difficult to manage their mental health, and they need help with that, and we're not giving them the help. Like, I hate to say it, but you're right, a lot of them do live on public transportation or use public transportation a lot to move around. And that's where a lot of these crimes are taking place. Now, this is being moved into the federal realm because mass transit is kind of a federal, there's a federal nexus there. Interstate commerce, the ICC clause, kind of gets the feds involved in a lot of things. And so, they can, and in this case, are getting involved in this kind of, brutal act of violence.
What do you make of there's another video where you see all of the people sitting around her on the other side of the train and no one really reacts at first?
Yeah, I don't know if that's because, a lot of times, and you saw her do this too, people just put their eyes down on mass transit. People don't like to make eye contact with other people for fear of, oh, this person's crazy, and if I make contact with them, they're gonna get aggressive towards me. So everybody kind of looks down. She was looking down at her phone the second she got on that train. And I think that this attack happened so quickly, and you don't see her scream, you don't see a struggle, and you see him walk away kind of quickly, that I think people may have been like, did that really happen? And you didn't see blood spurting, it was running down. You see it after. They were there within a minute or two, but I think because it happened so fast, and people mostly are diverting their gaze away from people that they may feel are aggressive and stuff. I think that's what took place. It wasn't like they were both standing and yelling at each other's face. Like, we do see those confrontations on trains and buses, but this wasn't that. This was just a very quick, almost silent attack from the back. There was no struggle. There was no confrontation. There was no argument. And so I think that is what took people a little by surprise and say, oh, that woman's, and quite frankly, after she gets struck the second time and he walks away, she actually doesn't look like she's hurt that bad. She is, of course, but she doesn't visibly look that way. So if I glanced up and saw her and saw the guy walking away, I think, oh, he must have brushed her or said something that bothered her. But then moments later, you realize she's declining rapidly. And so I think that kind of contributed to the fact that people took a moment to kind of go, what's going on? Is she actually hurt? And then they came over. I mean, like, I hate to say it, but like when you watch the video when she first got on, there's maybe 3 or 4 rows before the end of that train car. Her better course of action would have been not to sit with her back to him, to walk past him and sit with her back to the back of the train car. There looked like there was an open 2 seats there. I mean, I don't like to say it, but I never sit with my back to people I don't know or that look a little, possibly in distress to me. I always sit with my back to the wall, and keep an eye on everybody, just out of an abundance of caution.
Yeah, and I think your law enforcement training, I mean, even my friends who are police officers, they always back in or they always sit at a certain place in the restaurant where they can see. But it's kind of sad to think, I mean, this girl just from the Ukraine, she lived in a bomb shelter, college educated, came here to work. Um, Regular people, it's just sad to think that they should have to think like that. I mean, you should be able to just get on a train, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think this with my young niece, great nieces and nephews. They're 5, 6, 7 years old, but they go to school, and the police department comes around and they take that kit where they take a little DNA, their hair sample, or they take fingerprints or whatever because of child predators are out there. There's a little bit of innocence lost even at a young age like that, and I think there is some joy lost in life when you have to kind of walk around looking over your shoulder. But that's especially on mass transit in big cities, that's where we're at these days.
Do you think, I mean, when you saw you're right, it was confusing because at first I did a double take. Like, was she is that the point where she was stabbed? Because she looked okay. You don't really see any blood right away. And then later you see, I mean, there's so much blood. Could anything have been done with an injury like that if someone did rush right over? Or is that the kind of thing where if you hit a jugular or something, it's there's not much?
I was a medic in the FBI for a while, and we always that's the biggest thing that we gunshot wounds and knife wounds are the biggest thing we train for. But we know that when a major blood vessel is hit like that, there's little you can do. I don't know because we'll certainly probably find out from the medical examiner's report, the autopsy. But it looked to me like there was probably not much she could do. Anybody could have done, even if they were standing right there. You put pressure on it. But if it's, he hit her 2 or 3 times. So if it looks like it just completely severed a major blood vessel or artery or vein, I think I don't think that there was going to be much that could be done, especially by civilians and not medically trained people. But even if they were medically trained people right there, I don't know that, and this will be confirmed by the medical exam, but I don't know that there could have been much done by my very layman's look at the video.